我不想惹麻烦。
那就把项链交出来。
You have the wrong guy. Does he look like he can fight? Come on, bro.
You okay?
What up, y'all? It's your boy Clev coming at you live on the bus. I actually did take a little bit of martial arts as a youth, so I'm gonna try and grade this fight as we're going.
Welcome back to the channel. This is going to be my review of the Shang Chi movie. Be careful because there are spoilers ahead. I just want to say it's fantastic to see this movie. As a fan, I bought my first comic in 1977 where I used to buy Iron Fist and Power Man, and it was such a joy just to watch that level of martial arts in this movie, which we've never really seen at this level in the MCU before. R.I.P. Iron Fist, Netflix show. The true identity of the Ten Rings has been shrouded in mysteries and had inspired generations of men into the Middle Ages, and all branches of the Ten Rings operated as individual cells, with every cell operating independently of each other. And each cell would only receive money and weapons as long as they received them. They didn't ask any questions. Now, we know from Iron Man, and I did say required viewing is All Hail the King, which is a 10-minute short on Disney Plus, and Iron Man 1. Not so much Iron Man 3, but Iron Man 1. And we see there, following Tony Stark's escape, that the Ten Rings were forced out of their operations base being destroyed by Tony Stark, and the destruction of the Ten Rings at that point. But in Iron Man 3, Killian, he had the need to masquerade his failed experiments, which was extremists and terrorist attacks. And Killian even employed Trevor Slattery to pose, who was an actor, to pose as the Mandarin. It was then that the Ten Rings as an organization created exclusively really for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because in the mainstream Marvel comics, the Ten Rings originally referred to just the powerful weapons that were discovered by the Mandarin. So all of this is kind of new for the MCU, and I like the fact that they're taking a concept and making it their own, and that's what they need to do, especially for us comic fans. So guys, the movie starts thousands of years ago when Wenwu finds the Ten Rings and mysterious weapons that grant their user immortality and great power. And Wenwu uses this to amass an army called the Ten Rings, and it conquers many kingdoms, topples many governments throughout history. We actually see he begins searching for Tao Lo, a village set to harbour various mystical beasts in order to expand his power. So from the moment that Shang-Chi shows its martial arts skills on board a runway bus against the Legend of the Ten Rings army, it's all about the action, guys. The fight scenes, they're coordinated by the late Brad Allen. You know him from all of the Jackie Chan movies. And we see frequent collaboration with Jackie Chan styles in the fighting. You see him throwing himself through hoops, metal bars and tight spaces. It's really a joy to watch. Seriously guys, this is a new style for the MCU that we've seen, because we haven't seen anything previously like it before. And here the action pieces are really brightly shown, flair, quick movements, all too rarely seen in Hollywood blockbusters these days. None of the shaky camera stuff that you see in Marvel Civil War. Shang-Chi's personal growth is symbolized by his change in fighting style in the reigns of Nature, Fist and Tai Chi. Now, something that is really satisfying in terms of visual storytelling is the actual style that him and his mother had. Now, something we've seen in Billy Chung's 1980 superpower film and the Avatar The Last Bender and Naruto Sage Mode, all of that is using what we call nature energy. And that is really to mix with our own energy. So you have the physical and you have the spiritual energy. And Goku, remember guys, used to also use this in his spirit bomb. He used to use nature to infuse the spirit bomb. So I'm talking about what we would call in martial arts as a yin-yang release. So think of Wei Wu's ability as yang. It relates to just physical energy. chi that one has to sort of control in your own body. And each of us who do martial arts have to learn this in order to perfect our styles. But the yin relates to spiritual or cosmic energy when you think of in the MCU terms. And this is what magical beings use in order to increase their own powers. So the nature fist system is all based upon these unique principles of nature, honing in the beauty of these forms and the destructiveness of these techniques. Now, this combat is effective because it's proven to last over the test of time. And what Shang Chi and his mother could do, which is the same as Naruto and Goku and Aang in Avatar, is utilize both of these yin and yang levels in order to have a chi that would mold into a new type of ability, new type of chakra. And having a part of the dragon's celestial blood, which allows them both to further control the 10 rings, which is something that Weiwu couldn't do. Hence the color of their chi was gold in their energy rather than Weiwu's blue. And that's when you kind of knew through their blood Shang-Chi and his mother had. They were the ones that were able to control this power to its most ability. One thing I do want to say though, I want to touch upon this ability because when you get closer to the rings or to where Tao Lu is, then your spiritual power becomes stronger. And obviously the mother left that away. The mother literally, when they left to form a family, took on 20 people in the Iron Gang. Funny, the Iron Gang, what a name. And she never had that power because she left the city, she left the spiritual city. And think of it like in Peter Quill in Star-Lord. When he was near his father, Egon the Living Planet, Peter Quill's energy as a celestial became more infused and he became more powerful. But because he was away for it for so long, he was then sort of treated as a normal human being. So that's how you have to kind of look at these kind of cosmic level beings, where when they're more closer and in tuned into their natural energy, they'll become a lot stronger. But the nature fist can be seen when Shang-Chi's auntie, which is played by the wonderful Michelle Yeoh, opens his hands, allowing nature and the Tai Chi energy to freely flow through his body, embracing the spiritual dragon's chi. And many of his supporting cast members like Fu Manchu in the comics and Fa Lo Si were actually the creations of early 20th century novelist Sam Roma. Now, Sam Roma, as you know, made so much different books in regards to Fu Manchu, and there's a lot of TV shows and films and stuff like that. And there was actually a nice little Easter egg when Wenwu says he's been known of different names. One of them was actually Khan, and that was a big nod to Genghis Khan as well. So who's the best fighter in the comics? I think everybody's asking. You know, we see all these martial arts, and you've seen Iron Fist, and you've seen Steve Rogers and Black Panther, and they all use various different styles. But the best fighter in comics, guys, while Iron Fist is the most powerful, because remember, he has the power of a dragon in his fist, yeah? He uses that energy to make him more powerful. But in fighting terms, Shang-Chi is the better fighter in the comics. Now, both of them have had a fight before. Shang-Chi has stalemated Iron Fist in single combat. But the two martial artists was portrayed as equals from Black Panther, stating that Shang-Chi actually is a better fighter than Danny Rand's Iron Fist. So that will answer any questions that any of you guys really have on the subject. Now, Shang-Chi and Katie are unlike most Marvel protagonists, not the most glamorous pairing that you'd expect, but they're mostly down to earth, and they're guys that you really want to hang around with on a street level. And the film embraces these fruitful ideas, big and small, whether in cohesive action scenes or by the way that they just banter around with each other and they go out and they get drunk and have fun and have dinner and stuff like that. And this all incorporates in two guys as buddies and friends that are really something that we really see in the MCU on that level, because most of the friendships we see are on a professional level with the Avengers, where they've known to come to each other in that regard. Even the relationship that Tony Stark and James Rhodes has is one that they've had from the military and military weapons. But this is a more organic, natural friendship, and it gives us some funny and endearing moments. And guys, seriously, the fights are beautifully choreographed, some amazing action sequences where Shang-Chi excels as a story about family and how it can work for and against each other. Now, love is always put first and foremost in this film, and even for the villain, that's why this film works. Now, Marvel has a history of failed villains that are empty, have no backstory or directional reasons for what they do. But Thanos and Killmonger kind of changed that. Unfortunately, Black Widow reminded us that Marvel have a long way to go. But Hong Kong cinema lovers have enjoyed for decades Tony Leung, dug into his own history and transformed this character in Wei Wu that Marvel fans have long been waiting for. Someone who's deeply led by his desires to find love and power, but love overrules his worst desires in power, and he gives everything up just to be with the woman he loves. So he no longer cares. This villain just doesn't care about supernatural powers or extending his life force. He gives it all up. Yeah, conquering the world, thanks to the love of his life. And the way this power-hungry killer is brought down to his knees is truly a sight to behold for the film. It's like two animals meeting each other for the first time, and then they fight, and then they're teased and they get turned on by the fighting. That's kind of how they met and fell in love. And he may be the head of the Ten Rings terrorist organization and completely terrifying, but when Wu was falling in love, it makes us relate to him as a character. When Wu truly loved his kids, and he didn't hesitate for a chance to get his family back together to find his wife. And this performance is what really takes a story to a much more profound place for me. It's this very personal and relatable touch. So moving in this direction of, this romantic and loving character, vengeance-driven, Wenwu is one of the most nuanced, intriguing antagonists of any recent blockbuster film. To become the Iron Fist, though, you have to harness the power of Shang Lao by plunging your fist into its heart. And that's what made Iron Fist more powerful than Shang Chi in the comics. And although Shang Chi has always been a better fighter, as I said previously, here in the MCU, Shang Chi is given a power up that he never really gets in the comics. In the comics, he kind of knew how to use chi to do all different feats with his body. He even learnt cage bushing and how to create shadows and replicas of himself. But here in the MCU, is given a power up that is put him on a celestial level. These celestial powered rings puts him on a level of Thor or Captain Marvel. And remember, the rings make him immortal too. So that's something, it's kind of, when I think about immortal, it's more so like Themyscira, like when you're on an island, you don't age and you don't die. And kind of that's what the rings actually do. It's never really explained, but we have to think about it in that way, in that when you possess the rings, you don't age. So when we say immortal and can't die, that's what we mean. We don't mean that the person can't die completely. So in the comics, each ring gives the Mandarin a different superpower, like, wind control, fire control, freeze control, and things like that. It's been completely revamped in the movies. Instead of the 10 rings giving individual powers, the 10 rings in Shang-Chi work together as a single weapon connected by a spiritual energy. And it's capable of being shaped in different ways by the wielder. Now, the 10 rings can be launched individually as projectiles, used as propulsions, so that the wielder can leap to incredible heights or break their fall. Think of Naruto's truth-seeking orbs. They can react as fast enough to stop bullets or reflect projectiles, and they can even stand still in the middle of the air and use the stepping stones, which we see in one of the fights in the film. So where do the 10 rings exactly come from? Well, it's never really explained in the movie. Unfortunately, the origins of these artifacts is still unknown, with some people claiming to Wei Wu that they found them on an asteroid that fell from the sky, while others claimed that the 10 rings were found in a tomb. I think it's more that they fell out from the sky, because in the post-credit scenes, as we'll talk about in a minute, it shows that they are of celestial origin when we see the beacon. Now, in the comics, the 10 rings were created by an alien race called the Makulans. Now, the Makulans look like dragons and they have shape-shifting abilities, and we all remember the most famous one being Fin Fang Fu. So whether that is setting up the fact that it is the Makulans that sent them to Earth and Fin Fang Fu as a dragon will come into the MCU, that might be something that we might see down the road. Now, we also see Slattery, which is Ben Kingsley in this film, who became the Mandarin in Iron Man 3. And the character was kind of rewritten as a dim-witted actor and a pawn being used by all the evil forces. But he shows up in this film and he's quite the revelation. I mean, If anybody thought that he was ridiculous and stupid in Iron Man 3, well, he's even better in this movie, and really enjoyed what he was able to bring to the movie. Now, in the final scene of the movies, guys, it does open up some interesting implications of its own, where it shows you what might happen in Shang-Chi. So we go to Doctor Strange's Sanctorium, where we see Shang-Chi, Katie, Wong, and a holograph image of Carol Danvers and Captain Marvel. And we also see Bruce Banner in his original form. Not the Smart Hulk, by the way, so it's clear they're cutting down on budget, because it costs a lot of money to do him in his Hulk form. But he's still injured. So I wonder if we'll see some sort of healing ability from someone who fixes his arm, because his arm isn't going to fix any other way. But the 10 rings are floating in midair between them. And Shang-Chi remarks that his father has been using them for thousands of years. And Bruce Banner says that their power signature indicates that they could be much older. So there's a signal and a beacon that is coming from the rings. And it's a big question, guys, that the 10 rings is connected to the multiverse in a different way. Now, I'm not thinking Kang. I don't think it's Kang at all. I think that is something like the Makulans, like the dragon race. Maybe it's because of the demon dweller was killed that they set off the alarm. So if the 10 rings is connected to the multiverse, it's possibly that it can be coming from the Celestials. Because again, remember, these are celestial dragons and the power used is Celestials. So it could be that it's coming from them. And maybe the quantum realm might have something to do with it. Remember, we saw the civilization that had been glimpsed in the Ant-Man movie. So they could play an important role in the introduction of a lost city, and which might be Kang-Lo. We don't know. But that could play a part in it. But the Celestials, guys, they were the ones that sort of the elders had created Infinity Stones and things like that. And maybe the Celestials created the 10 rings. It's possible that they were using this technology created by the Celestials in normal humans as well, the Eternals and Deviants. So maybe the 10 rings activates a beacon that sends a signal to the Celestials that it's time to come and look on their creation egg, as in the new Earth, as in Earth's core, which is how the Celestials are born. So that's probably what leads the film into the Eternals movie, because remember, it seems like in that movie that there's a new Celestial being born on Earth. We also see, guys, the Abomination. Now, the funny thing with the Abomination is I couldn't quite work out what was going on with this character, because we see Wong defeated the Abomination thanks to a portal trick which he used to knock himself out. But it looks like the two are working together to create a fight worth watching, rather than being an actual fight itself. Was he on the raft? Or was he on anywhere else? Was he being taken care of or looked after or imprisoned? It doesn't look like that from this scene. So it might be possible that Contessa Valentino, who we saw at the end of the Falcon Winter Soldier series, which spoke to John Walker and recruited him. We saw at the end of the Black Widow movie, who recruited the new Black Widow. We might see some relation to them. We know that Tim Roth is actually back and Abomination is going to be in the She-Hulk TV series. We don't actually know in what capacity, so I can't wait to see what happens in that respect. But guys, I'm going to give this a solid 8.3 out of 10. I think this is definitely the best fighting that we've seen in the MCU, and I think that from start to finish, where it started and where it ended is uber essential for the future of the MCU as the new power standard. You know, those 10 rings are amazing. He can literally take on anybody in the Avengers at any level with those rings, and it will make him a force to be reckoned with no matter who he's fighting. And I really want to see how that kind of plays out. So yeah, let me know what you guys think, and hope you enjoyed this review, and I'll speak to you in the next one. Peace out.